Okay, hi guys. So I did not come on this weekend because there's a plane, really. Because of the 24-hour Tarathon, I didn't want to take away from that because first of all, I wanted to watch a bunch of it, and it was really a great thing. So I hope a lot of you got to catch that. I did want to continue our Beginner Witch series, so I'm going to do that now, and actually I'm going to move us a little tiny bit closer, hopefully. Good. Alright, so hopefully it doesn't rain, because it looks like it is kind of close to starting, maybe sprinkling, but so this part of the series, I wanted to talk about your Book of Shadows. So when you're a beginner witch, one of the first things that you should do is start some kind of Book of Shadows, or several. So let's talk about, first of all, what is a Book of Shadows? So your Book of Shadows should be a number of things. I have several different Books of Shadows. I'm going to show you a couple examples of a couple. It should be a place where you write down or save the spells that you've used that you find work good for you, the herbal remedies that you've used that have worked for you. There's a couple different kinds of Books of Shadows. The two kinds I'm going to show you today, the two physical types that I have that I consider like my real Book of Shadows. One is an actual, here, let me start. So this is one. This is just, see, it says Family BOS Book of Shadows. So when I first started my path, a long time ago, I actually looked through all kinds of stuff and decided, oh, I have to have a Book of Shadows. So in searching for different pages and stuff for the Book of Shadows, I found a woman who sold basically this. I've added some to it, but sold a Book of Shadows that was she printed off a bunch of pages for a Book of Shadows, put it into the binder for you, and made different sections for it. So I have, this is a huge Book of Shadows. It is great. I still use it today, and you're talking, I can't even tell you how many years ago this was. There's a lot of information to it, so that's great if you want to get just a binder kind of thing. This is, see, this says Gods and Goddesses, and then Moon Goddesses, and the Green Man, and Africa Gods and Goddesses. So it lists African gods and goddesses and what they are gods and goddesses of. Then it'll go on to different ones. So this is still African, Aztec god and goddesses. I can't read upside down. Canaanite gods and goddesses. So that's gods and goddesses. When we get to, so there's lots of information. Get to another section. This is the divination section. Okay, so in here is tarot meanings of the minor arcana, and it goes into tarot readings of the major arcana, and so on and so forth. Then there's other sections like correspondences. Correspondences would be like days of the week. So on Monday you should do certain magic. Let's say, okay, so let's say, look, on Monday, Monday is ruled by the moon. It's under the sign of Cancer. The colors for Monday are silver and white. The plants for Monday is nightflower, willow, osiris root, birch, motherwort, vervain, white rose, and iris. The stone for Monday is moonstone, aquamarine, pearl, quartz crystal, fluorite, geodes. Intentions for Monday. So if you're going to do spells, the best time to do these kind of spells is on a Monday. Psychic pursuits, psychology, dreams, astral travel, imagination, women's mysteries, reincarnation, and it's ruled by the element of water. Okay. So that just gives you an example. This is a huge wealth of information. I really love having this. That's great. You do not have to have a book of shadows like that, though. For me, it's funny. After, experiencing as much as I've experienced in my path, I kind of decided that while this is wonderful, it also is not tuned in to my necessarily beliefs. How I always say, you really have to go by how you feel. Do you feel that Mondays are a good time to do a different kind of magic than it lists? Great, then you should be doing that. This is information that someone else has put together, and while it is maybe suggested, lots of pagans or witches have felt like Mondays are good for this magic or whatever, because your path is going to be personalized for you. All of this information is great, especially, I have to say, when you're first starting out, it's great, because when you don't know anything and it's kind of nice to have some guidance of, okay, let me try this and see if it works for me. That is kind of nice. But as you deepen your own path, you're going to want to have a book of shadows that is personal for you. This is what has worked for me. So that every time you need to do a spell to increase your psychic ability, you can look in your book of shadows under your divination and say, okay, what has worked for me before? Oh, look, I have used mugwort. I burned mugwort in an incense, and that seemed to help and seemed to strengthen my psychic ability. I have, drank tea with hibiscus, and that seemed to increase my my ability to see from my third eye. You're gonna know what worked for you before, and so you can build upon that as your foundation and continue it on. So the other thing I want to say about this big, huge kind of book of shadows is you do not necessarily, especially now that technology is so great, you do not necessarily have to have a book that is printed out and in front of you. I have to say, I kind of like having a book because, I come from, I'm a little bit older and come from a time where most of the information that I had is from a book. However, I also, and I've said before, I have on my Pinterest page, I have a huge wealth of information like this book. Probably a bunch of these pages are in my Book of Shadows groups on my Pinterest page. A huge wealth of information of suggested Book of Shadow pages. So you don't necessarily have to print out, this huge book. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. You can get that information someplace else. You can save it in a file on your computer. You can, create your own Pinterest and I started out with one group that was my witchy group on Pinterest. One folder that just said witchy items, and then that grew and grew and grew. Now I have, I don't even know how many. I'll try to link again my Pinterest account on the down bar, so that if you want to use, you're welcome to use anything that I have put in there. I don't mind. Some people I have found out are very odd when they put their stuff on Pinterest, they want you to like their stuff but not put their stuff into your folders or something. So I've actually been blocked by a couple people because they didn't, like, I put too much stuff into my folders. Whatever, I don't care. My stuff is there for other people to learn from as well as me, so more power to you. Go ahead. If you think something I have is of use to you, you're certainly welcome to save it into your own. But anyways, my Book of Shadows groups, folders on Pinterest, I have probably at least 10 folders that are BOS, so it's Book of Shadows. I have a correspondence folder, I have a gods and goddesses folder, I have a Sabbats folder, I have a chants folder, I have signs and sigils. So I have, you know, separated them into different categories on there. So you can have just a Pinterest, you can have stuff on your computer. What other kinds? I have all over my house, I have little steno pads, because when I'm first starting out, something that I want to keep, I might start out on a steno pad. So this was 7 life purpose questions. I think this was a YouTube tag or something. So I started writing down my 7, and then if there's something in here that I want to keep for future reference, I can put that in my personal Book of Shadows. That's the goal. I'll show you in a minute how that's gone for me. Okay, this is what I would call my Book of Shadows for herbal stuff. It's just a folder, and I have separated out into the alphabet, A, B, C, D, and so on. And this is what I try to keep for any, like, my homemade incense recipes, what I feel herbs do for me. Once I know that and I have an incense recipe that works, or a washing, like the 4 Thieves vinegar, I write down my recipes in this book once I know they have worked for me. And this serves for me as my apothecary book. So just to give you an idea of what I have written down. Now, this is, again, just kind of a journal with information on there. That's all a Book of Shadows is. Something with your information. What else could you use? I have all kinds of little blank books. Look at this one, says Book of Shadows, and it's just a little book. I haven't figured out what I want to write in something so little, and because this one's so nice, I'm like, oh, that's cute. I'm going to try to figure out what I want to put in there and keep that. I have tons of dollar store journals around, so I have a whole bunch that are started that, like, okay, a Lunasa journal that I start, what have I tried this year, whatever. Again, this is like a dollar store journal. So you can start with that if you want to. So then I will tell you, my goal is, I will show you my personal Book of Shadows. Which I laugh when I say that, because I've been working on it for probably 8-9 years now, and I might have 4 pages done. So every year I pull it out and I'm like, okay, I'm going to work on it some more. And I have a very strict goal in my head of what to do and how to do it. It just hasn't quite gotten there. But so my personal Book of Shadows is also like a photo album with big pages. And then on the front it had a place to put a picture, and so it says it's a simple concept, be one with nature. So I just put that in there. So I like that. And then on the inside, I do have some of the, like, printable pages. This is Book of Shadows, Book of Light. This book belongs to the Storellis. At the time when I first started, my boys were very much practicing with me, and they've kind of waned off. There's a couple that still do, Sabbats and stuff with me when they're home and all that kind of stuff, but mine is more of a solitary practice now. I do have kind of a coven that I work with sometimes too, but so this is a dedication. And then it's funny, see, now some of this stuff I'll probably be taking out because this is the Wiccan Rede, which it's, for the most part, I believe in the Wiccan Rede, but I am more of a, what I would call a gray witch. I actually call myself an eclectic pagan because I believe that there's no all good or all bad. I think that there's a time and place for stuff like hexes or binding spells or something. I also believe that the energy that you put out will come back to you. I don't know if I believe in it threefold, but I do believe that you shouldn't put out that kind of energy unless you're prepared to take that kind of energy back. At the same time, I think that my intentions, if I'm trying to stop someone else from harming me, are not like all bad. So I don't believe in harm ye none. If I'm being harmed, you better believe I'm giving it back to you. But again, to me that's more like of a cyclical thing. It's not I'm setting out to harm somebody. But so I have some kind of examples that Wheel of the Year and that kind of thing. And then I've started, after all that stuff, this is where I have started my actual Book of Shadows, which I have, I got a bunch of scrapbook paper, and I always look for cool scrapbook paper, like after Halloween, usually I'll show you the bigger packets of scrapbook paper that are like this but bigger are on sale usually, and so I'll get the bigger scrapbook paper that I like, which usually I try to find some neat patterns, or after Halloween they have witches and stuff on them. See, like them, but they have the real big pages. And then I want to decorate all the pages for what I decide to put on there. So the first page here, this is my personal Book of Shadows blessings. So, and my dedication. So this, I put, may this Book of Shadows and all others written in my hand be an offering to the gods and goddesses. I contribute initiative, patience and strength, communication, nurturing, drama and ritual, skill within the craft, enthusiasm, empowerment and will, balance and truth, growth and wisdom, innovation, compassion, love and unity, and perfect love and perfect trust. To the goddess of many names, our ancient mother, who is queen of the skies and the earth and the bright magic of lunar light, and to the God of many names, our wise Father, the Lord of the sun and ripening corn and green Lord of the woodlands, the great horned one. So mote it be. So, and I wrote that in my hand, and that to me is my dedication of my main Book of Shadows. This is my personal Book of Shadows. So instead of trying to hold the whole book up, hold on, I'm going to take out the pages that I'm going to show you. So then I have calling quarters. So this was, and I'm gonna do an example of a ritual very soon, because a couple of people have said that they are interested in seeing what a ritual would look like. But one of the first things you do when you're gonna do a ritual is after you make the circle, and I'll show all this when I do a sample ritual. And you want to call the quarters, which means the 4 elements. You want to call them into your circle to protect and guide your circle, because you want all of those energies into your circle. So I kind of took from some of the calling quarters chants that I had seen and made my own. So, for example, it says always start in the north, which is how I was taught. Again, if you feel like you feel like you should always start in the east, start in the east, no problem. South, west, whatever. To me, north means earth. That is, I believe, the most widely. There's another one, some witches believe differently, and I can't remember how they believe. But to me, north means earth. So what I said is, hail, spirit of the north, guardians of the earth, rock, leaf, and root, lover of gnomes and elves, circle near, enter here, aid me in my works, ground me in your wisdom, guard this circle dear, hail and welcome, so mote it be. So that is calling in the guardians of the north. And then I have one for east, which to me is air, south, which to me is fire, and west, which to me is water. And then on the back side of that page is releasing the quarters. Because then after you do your ritual and everything, you want to release the quarters back to their home. So the releasing the quarters for the north. And again, this was my personal thing that I felt worked for me. After that's all done, spirit of the north, guardians of the earth, trees, and animals, thank you for assisting me and guarding my circle. Depart with my gratitude, hail, and farewell. And then it goes on for air, fire, and water. There you go. Then I have the gods and goddesses of the elements. I have the charge of the goddess prayer, the charge of the god prayer, the charge of the dark goddess, the charge of the dark god. I have just a little, when I first started out, a little candle blessing ritual that I thought, oh, that worked really well for me. So I kind of wrote it out. I put them in a little blurb and I put it into my Book of Shadows. So it is a very personal thing. Whatever you want in your Book of Shadows, you can have in your Book of Shadows. It should be, I would suggest, although you don't have to, I would suggest having one Book of Shadows that is a Book of Shadows after you have tried out a couple different things and you say, oh, you know what, this one I really loved. I really loved this ritual. I really loved this spell. I really loved this incense recipe. I really connected with this god or goddess. After you have gone through a couple and you know what, this one was really good. I liked this. Have one Book of Shadows that is your personal reference Book of Shadows. And that is the Book of Shadows that if your family members are going to be witches or, follow at all your path, that is what you would pass down. It is starting to sprinkle, but I'm at 23 minutes, so we're doing okay. All right, so some other ideas. What should be in your Book of Shadows? Gods and goddesses. So the gods and goddesses that you connect with. You don't have to list every god and goddess. There's tons of books for that. But if you have a deity that you are working with, or you find a patron deity that you find, has called you to work with them exclusively for a while, then you should take a minute to, well, more than a minute if it's your patron, but take some time to really investigate that god or goddess. What do they like? What is there a day of the week that they, connect to more? Is there an incense or an aroma that they connect to? And it may not be what is listed. Again, most important thing, your intentions, how you feel about it is everything. So if you look up, let's say you feel like Morgana has called you to be your patron goddess, and you look up and Morgana's incense is dragon's blood, and you use dragon's blood and you don't particularly feel that Morgana really connected with you, but you use a patchouli blend and suddenly, wow, that really felt like more connection, then Morgana for you likes the patchouli blend. That's okay. Connect it to yourself, to what feels good for you. And that's why I believe You should have one book of shadows. You can have 100 books of shadows everywhere you want. You should have one that this is the stuff that I've tried and I know this is what works for me. Prayers, any prayers that you come up with. Meals, if you for Sabbath you cooked a really good bread and you're like, oh, that turned out perfect, and it, you know, I was able to shape it really well into the shape of the God, or I was able to braid it and it looked beautiful and it was just perfect for the harvest and whatever. Put that recipe into your book of shadows. A bedtime, if you find a bedtime ritual or a bedtime prayer that really speaks to you, that allows you to relax more, that allows you to let go of the daily grind kind of stuff, put that in there. Poems, songs, circles, if you find a particular way of gathering your circle, put that in there. Circle casting, that's what I was just talking about, calling the quarters and that kind of thing. Altars, how to make your altar. We talked a little bit about the traditional altar. I will do a video on a traditional altar and what is included into a traditional altar. But you should have a general basic idea of this is what I want to keep on my altar. I have to make sure that I want, let's say personally for me, I like to make sure there's some representation of a pentacle on there. Pentacle, pentagram on that altar, because to me, I know that then I have remembered to bring in all 4 elements plus spirit. I, like a gold candle for the god and a silver candle for the goddess. If you don't have gold or silver, you can always use white candles for both and just inscribe a goddess symbol or what means goddess to you, or a god symbol. If you don't have a gold, that's fine. But what do you like on your altar? How do you set up your altar? To me, the right side of the altar is for the God, and everything that I have decided to me means that it's, like the sacrifice. I keep thinking sacrifice. The offering to the God, and to me, the left side of the altar is the goddess side. So, like the chalice, which represents the womb, is on the left for me. The cauldron, which represents the womb, is on the left for me. The athame is on the right. That represents masculinity. It doesn't mean that has to be that way for you. I know I say that over and over, but I want to make it clear, because I hate when people are like, oh, this is how it has to be. Tools. You want to put the tools that you like on your altar. You want to put basic spell writing, some of your correspondences. All that kind of stuff should go into your book of shadows. There is a million ideas out there. The lunar cycles, the elements, what kind of representations of each element. For me, again, I have to have some kind of representation for each element. For my daily, normal, everyday altar, I actually have these big fake gems that look like kind of diamonds. They're plastic though. And one is green for earth, red for fire, kind of a sparkly holographic yellow for air, and blue for water. So if I don't have anything else, although usually I have something else also, on there to represent the 4 elements, then I know I have not forgotten them. All 4 elements are in there. Any planetary, so I'm a Libra, so I might want to put in my personal book of shadows, this is what Libras are like. This is what Libras should look out for. This is tarot. If you're learning tarot, put some of your tarot stuff in there after you've learned it. This is what I think the moon card means to me. Put that down in there. In your section for divinatory, put down, this is what I think the squirrels are playing in the tree. They are hilarious right now. So we're almost at half hour. So I hope this gives you an idea anyway of where to start. I have so many more ideas, so I may do another video, kind of a part 2, a more in-depth about your personal, because I have so many ideas, and I brought out a bunch, but I hate to go over a half hour because A, my phone breaks it up, and B, you know, sometimes after a half hour I need a break from a video anyways. But I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope this helps you out a little bit, and I hope your week is going great. I will try to do another video for kind of a little bit more advanced Book of Shadows ideas type of thing. So, blessings. Laughing at the squirrels are hilarious. I hope you guys are doing great this week.